All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. First agenda item is we have a new member that is here tonight.
Yes.
Do you want to pronounce your name for me?
Hey, Dauda.
Dauda?
Yeah.
Balde?
Yes.
Okay. Dauda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what's brought you to volunteer on HCDC?
My name is Dauda Balde. I'm from West Africa, Guinea. I came here in 2013. I was living in New York with my brother, and after 2 years, I moved to Iowa in April 2nd, 2016. Yeah. And I started going back to college and graduated and start working at Collins Aerospace and sometimes doing some volunteer work. I used to work for the Johnson County Food and Grove and
The what? I'm sorry.
Johnson County Food and Grove at Melrose. They have a place where they have activities about like food, and I used to go.
I'm drawing a blank on Melrose. Oh, okay,
Melrose.
gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So, and I used to volunteer at some like non-profit organization about disabled people. You know, when they have like meetings and parties, I used to go and help out. And at the church down in Muscatine, they have some work that I used to go and help out because sometimes there is a lady over there who one day I went to help a guy to apply for some paperwork, and then she was like, I saw that she needed help, and I started going there and then helping her rearrange like the boxes of food because they have like free food for needy people. And then I used to go over there and then help out. And then I saw this online, and then I saw that I can be here and do something for my community.
Welcome. Why don't we go down the row and we'll just do a quick intro.
I'm Carol Croats, and this is my first full term, although I did finish 2 years of a previous unfinished term. And my background is in nonprofit administration, and I wanted to say welcome and how wonderful that you do all that volunteer work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Kiran Patel. My background's in GIS, so Geospatial Information Systems. Yep.
I'm Mary Ann Dennis. I'm retired from a housing developer, nonprofit.
I'm Kyle Vogel. I own a property management company in town, and I think this is year four or five or something, I think, for me on there, so.
I'm Denise Seche, and I teach math and computer science at the University of Iowa.
And we have a couple members who aren't here, but yeah, welcome. So, next item on the agenda, consideration of meeting minutes from the September 16th meeting. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look through them. Did anybody have any clarifications, amendments?
There was some clumsy language, to me anyway, on page 4, underneath staff and commission updates, the last full line. It says training on like how to complete the budget section.
On page 4?
When they do we have someone help us with our minutes, and I think a lot of the time they use an audio transcription, so that's probably just how it was said in the meeting, but we can summarize it if that's preferred.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It just seemed kind of clumsy, and can we fix it?
If you want to propose a change on how you want that to be written, we can do that if you want to vote on that.
Oh, gosh, it has to be a vote? Okay, it's not that big of a deal.
I'm just trying to find it. I'm sorry.
Oh. On page 4, the last page of the minutes, staff and commission updates, the first full paragraph, the last full line.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
It says the United Way is also doing some technical training on like how to complete the budget section.
Well, does someone want to just make an amendment to strike the word "like" in that sentence?
Okay, I would like to make it
You can move to have the minutes accepted with that
We can do that,
change.
too,
yes. Okay, I make a motion to have the minutes accepted with the change of taking out the word "like" and to take out the word
Phil.
"fill." Thank you. Take out the word "fill" also.
But do we have to vote on changes individually? Oh, never mind, never mind.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you.
All righty. Approved as amended. Number 4, public comment. Is there anybody out in the audience that would like to get up and speak about items not on the agenda? You sure? Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing as there's no other public to comment, let's move on to 5. Number 5 is to review and consider recommendation to City Council on approval of substantial amendment number 1 to the city's fiscal year 24 annual action plan. I mean, everybody can read it. Basically, we've got one situation where some federal monies weren't spent, and staff is proposing using those funds to go towards city's Green State and Hills Down Payment Program to fund up to 12 additional households. And then some other monies that weren't used by a couple other organizations that the recommendation is to give it to Housing Fellowship to buy 2 affordable rental units for households. Staff?
Yep, to give you a little extra context, there were 2 projects from our FY24 annual action plan. I realize that was probably prior to some of you being on the commission. United Action for Youth was home funded to acquire and rehab some transitional housing units. With federal funding, there comes a lot of restrictions, a lot of regulations that come with that. And United Action for Youth they canceled their project because that was able to proceed without federal funding. And they were actually able to do that through a partnership with the Housing Fellowship. So that project proceeded, it just wasn't federally funded. So that canceled home fund is what's in the amendment here. And then the second project for the home funds would be the Ronald Street student-built construction. Initially, that was awarded $200,000 of home funds. Similar situation, we have to go through a historic preservation review, and that takes a little bit longer. So that project ultimately proceeded without federal funding. I believe there's some city money in that, local funds. But we're looking at taking the home money from those 2 projects and reallocating that towards rental acquisition to try to honor the intent of the original projects. Both projects were rental activities for those home funds. Do you want me to jump into the second one?
Well, let's address this one first. I have a handful of questions. Anybody else have any thoughts on this before I jump in?
I'd have one question. So when do the funds need to be spent?
Home, typically, they say it needs to be committed within 2 years and spent within 4. With the way the appropriations have been, they've been waiving some of the spending deadlines, but we try to stick with those just to make sure that if anything changes, we're kind of ahead of the curve.
But these are FY24 funds? Okay,
So we would want to commit those soon.
right, okay.
If I recall, I did the down payment assistance program change its requirements that it no longer has to be in those certain census blocks, or?
It's open citywide.
Okay.
The question that I have is, with the Housing Fellowship and the 2 additional rental units, do we know if those would be for people under 80 or 60%?
Home requires under 60%.
Under 60? Is it possible for us to place some kind of suggestion that to attempt to fund for people under 40%?
What do you think?
Just a preference that we would have?
You can suggest that. We typically leave it at the maximum when we fund projects like this, unless we know specifically, because they probably don't know who they're funding. They also might be serving someone with a housing choice voucher, and so being able to get the maximum rents would be helpful. So we typically don't adjust it, but you guys can suggest what you choose.
Yeah, I was just thinking people see that, and I don't have a problem with that, but if we just could just say that I don't know if it's a suggestion, I can't think of the right word tonight, but maybe, yeah. Because I think sometimes that gets overlooked, and if it's there in the printing and it's in their face and they see that, and I think, I wonder if we can do that.
I mean, I think that's a good suggestion. However, I think for the folks that are administering the program and trying to do all the compliance and stuff, and I believe anyway, and Simon might be able to answer the question a little bit better, but probably the majority of the folks that rent from the Housing Fellowship fall quite a bit far below 60%. So, but it's a little bit difficult when you only have two rental homes that have to be under a certain amount, and then somebody comes in and they're a couple dollars over, and you have to say, no, you're not poor enough to
Yeah.
rent this.
I was just thinking, I have personal experience with being too poor to rent.
Well, right. No, but I mean,
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And, yeah. it
or what I
would-
guess what I'm saying is, they would say, no, you make too much money,
Yes.
but the applicant would still feel very poor.
Yeah, I know.
But
Yeah.
could you mind if Simon comes up?
Yeah. Simon, you want, I mean, we're really just addressing the reasoning behind taking these, Simon, give me a second. Let me just say my piece real quick, which is, my initial issue when I saw it was I felt like we're doing the shell game. I feel like we all voted, we gave money to United Action for Youth, we did give money to Housing Fellowship. Now, without going through that process again, we're just making a decision, we're just going to take that money and just give it to Housing Fellowship. Not that it's not bad, I just feel like we're taking it out of the decision-making process. So then, like you had asked, so my question is there not, I mean, can these funds not go back into CDBG, I guess, awarding time? And that's my question. And that's why I guess I was confused by when you said you had 2 years to spend it. I mean, are we just at a point where we just have to give it to somebody or it's going to go away?
Some of this is, in theory, you could wait and put it into the competitive round, but then in that case, you're asking staff to wait till July of next year before we can proceed with these projects. So that's the challenging part. And with any kind of acquisition, there's a degree of, having to wait to see what the market does when you're trying to find a rental unit.
And I think I may be able to speak to a couple of things that maybe assuage both of your questions a little bit. I'm Simon Andrew. I'm the director of the Housing Fellowship. I really appreciate y'all considering this amendment. First, on the income levels, Mary Ann's right. The vast majority of the households we serve fall well below 60, in most cases below 40. The average household income for our tenants is $27,000 a year, and we have households up to 10-person households. So a 10-person household, but very large households at any rate. So by and large, they fall well below that, but Brianna's right. We do like to have the limit set at 60%, because households that do have a voucher, then basically the community's turning down free federal money if it's restricted at the lower rate, because it's the voucher that picks up that 60% rent. But the income levels of most of the households are far below that. We just like that flexibility because of the interaction with housing choice vouchers. But yeah, again, that's by and large who we serve.
Let me just ask you this. If
Sure.
somebody has an income of, let's say, under $25,000,
Yes,
and they also have a voucher,
yes.
and they pay 50% of a person's rent,
No, the voucher in that case would likely pay all of their rent. The voucher is structured that a household shouldn't be paying more than, and Erica and Brianna would be able to speak to the mechanics of it a lot better, but If your income is low enough, the voucher will pay all of your rent, up to a set cap of what a rent can be. That's based on average rents, but that's based on the tenant's income. So as they start making more money, the voucher will pay less, but we have many households that don't pay anything out of pocket.
You know, I find that really interesting because I fall in that category of having income below that amount, and I've never had all of my rent paid for me. I usually pay between 40 and 50, sometimes maybe 55% of it, and I have the housing choice voucher. So
Okay.
I don't really understand that. And if there's a misunderstanding either on my end or your end, if we could kind of maybe get some clarification on that so that when as a commission, we're making decisions, we understand
Sure.
how that money is going to be spent.
And that would be a question for city staff.
Sure.
But we do have households that pay anywhere from, the voucher only pays $5 of their rent, and they're responsible for the rest, all
Are
the
those
way up
you-
to they don't pay anything out of pocket.
Are those usually families with children?
Both. Most of our households have children, so our experience is yes. But no, I think it's both, whether it's a single-person household or.
Do you ever have just one-bedroom units that you
Yes.
rent?
Yep, we have 17 one-bedroom.
Okay, yeah, because there's a shortage, it
There
seems.
is. There is. We're seeing right now the biggest demand at the extremes.
Yeah.
Very large families and single-person households.
Yeah.
We do have quite a bit of 2- and 3-bedroom units.
Thank you for answering that for me, and I can talk to you at another time.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, absolutely. Now, to the question about the UAY project and the student build project, we were really proud to partner with UAY to let that project go forward. In both cases, we are borrowing that money. The city doesn't have any funding in the second student build home, the one that they're doing right now, and we're taking on that debt with the hope and understanding that we would be able to access these funds otherwise. Basically, UAY was put in a position that they had 8 homeless clients that they were serving between the ages of 16 and 22 that they were already renting private apartments from, that they weren't going to be able to continue in those apartments. They were afraid that those individuals would be homeless again come July when the lease-up schedule ends, and when their funding did not come through in a way that would allow them to purchase this house. It was the interaction with their federal funding for their transitional living program. They thought that they were really up a creek, that they weren't going to be able to serve these clients and that they were going to be back out on the street. So they went to the Community Foundation, they asked city staff, United Way, if there was any way that basically they could get bailed out and still be able to close on this house. And effectively, they just needed a landlord with borrowing capacity to be able to borrow the gap in the home purchase. So we took over their purchase agreement. It was really just to help out one of our partner agencies and to help them complete their mission, which in this case is the same as ours, which is preventing more homeless individuals on the street. And in this case, it is those 16 to 22-year-olds that really had nowhere else to go. So that was the logic in that, they turned in this funding because we were able to bail them out on the Cayman purchase, and that hopefully we would be able to use this to backfill purchasing a home that we would have had to borrow money for. So we're just basically using the debt on the UAY purchase instead of the new acquisition and hoping we can use these funds for that new acquisition. Ronald Street, as Brianna described, it was the timing of the school district calendar. Students are back in school in August. They needed to start building in August. Archaeological review was such that we weren't going to have the answers we needed in time to get the students rolling. So again, we don't have other funds in that project. That is private debt right now at 7% interest that we're borrowing to finish that construction. So hopefully we can use that $200,000 for other acquisitions that will cash flow such that it will pay the debt on Ronald Street. It is all just to get the student build project. We believe in the project that much, we're willing to take a loss on that second house, basically. And so we're hoping for that $200,000 to remain allocated to the fellowship so that we can acquire additional properties that will help that cash flow picture.
So it sounds to me like this stuff's not easy to figure out and sort of like kind of a shell game. But
Yeah.
it's a shell game that, in my opinion anyway, has really good results for the community.
Any other questions about either of those? Or I can sit down, and if something comes up, let me know. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. I have a question for staff. Do you anticipate that any other agencies will raise concerns with, if we go ahead and send this to the council for approval, that they weren't able to compete, I guess, for those funds?
I don't know that we could speak for other applicants, but we will be approaching our next home funding, or CDBG and home funding round again in December, so that will open up at the end of the month. So there's that funding available, and then for affordable housing with projects like this, we also, the city contributes to our local affordable housing fund, which is administered by the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County. So this isn't the only opportunity for affordable housing funds at the moment, so I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, you answered my question.
Anybody else have anything to talk about on this? I absolutely appreciate the kismet of these projects failing and being able to roll into a different project. I absolutely, and the 300,000 even for the city, I have a little, I mean, there at least the thing is it's city funds being used for a city project. It's, repayment of a loan, CDBG comes in, city funds for city project. I just intrinsically have a hard time with us moving money from other projects to a new project without what we fight for here all the time, which is a discussion about the merits of everybody's proposal. And it is it's $310,000 that could be used by an organization that could come forward and say, instead of 2 properties or instead of 2 families we can assist, maybe someone wants to buy a $1.2 million 24-plex of 1-bedrooms. And just needs $310,000 for the down payment for 30% down on that. And suddenly we have 24 households in Iowa City that can be assisted with the same 310 versus 2. I don't know that that's going to happen, obviously, because we're not taking the opportunity or getting the opportunity to have that discussion. I also understand the pressure and extra work it puts on staff to push stuff off. Those are those are simply my concerns with it. Obviously I am more than happy to, obviously, if the council, if the commission, seems to think that this is the way to go, I'm more than happy to call a vote, and unless we think there's, I don't know. That's just where I'm at on it.
This would go to the city council for final approval, is that correct?
Yeah, we're in a 30-day public comment period, and it will go to city council November 4th.
Okay.
And I would also note, this is our standard process for a substantial amendment. Like, this is the process. What you're going through right now is the process to change our plan, to change these projects. So we're not doing anything secretly. This is the public process so we're following our normal procedures to adjust these to accommodate for changes that have happened since we got our initial action plan approved.
But step 1 is for this commission to make a recommendation.
Correct.
Yeah.
But just, from my past experience, and I think hopefully the staff agrees that this is not terribly unusual, number 1. And number 2, the chances of somebody, if we put this back in a round, if we put the money back for the next round, correct, then it lowers the amount of time that somebody has to finish the project. And if that project isn't finished within the HUD guidelines, that money goes back to Washington, D.C. We lose the money. And, in my past experience, this stuff moves around all the time. It's just,
That was going to be my question is, in the past few years, have we had a similar situation where the commission has said, yeah, we agree with that, that's okay?
we had
can't think of
had a substantial amendment last year.
Yeah, we do substantial amendments all the time. I
Yeah.
can't think of a specific
Yeah.
project to reference right now that you might remember, but this is pretty common for us to bring you substantial amendments to
Yeah.
our action plans or consolidated plan.
I mean, it's kind of like the best laid plans, when people come in and apply, and then they have to go out and find the housing, I'm not talking about CDBG, I'm talking about home funds specifically, You don't know what's out there. You don't know, you don't get the funds until July, and at that point, you've already, had, what, a year that you've had the funds. You don't get them until, well, that's a little exaggeration, but anyway, there's a time lag between the time that the council approves a budget and the money is available from when the applications come in. And then you don't know what the market is. And you're in a time crunch to purchase, to find the housing, purchase the housing, rehab it if you have to, get it all closed out with HUD.
Can I ask Simon one more question? This is for rental housing, correct?
Correct.
And specifically a duplex?
No, not necessarily. We own 211 rental housing units. They're by and large single-family homes, duplexes, townhomes. So we look at zero lots, basically the same as single-family homes when we're looking to acquire. There are a couple that we have our eye on. We'll probably acquire 3 more in the next probably 9 months, in addition to hopefully these 2. So yes, we do look at duplexes, but not necessarily. It wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be
I wondered
side by
if you
side.
had a specific property in mind if you were awarded
No,
this
there
money.
is a duplex for sale on Muscatine that's real close to a few other units that we own, that we've been looking at.
It helps me to know.
Yep, and they are
what
both
you're-
side by side, and that's always very attractive just for efficiency of maintenance if they're neighbors. But, so very likely a duplex with this dollar amount, but not necessarily.
Okay.
And while I'm up here, I'm hoping I could just say 2 more things. Effectively, this is a mechanism to get done projects that you have approved. Just speaking to, projects didn't go through best laid plans, money go back into it, but without this mechanism, those would not have happened. So it really is a way to get done the projects that you initially considered and approved, is the way we were looking at it when we had this discussion initially, especially the UAY project, that just, the money would have gone back into the pot and those kids would be homeless. And it wouldn't have happened. So this was us coming to make sure that the project that you wanted to see did happen. And on that note, the last pitch I'll make, because you'll probably see more of these in the future, is collaborations between our nonprofits. The clients that UAY is serving, we don't have the skill set to serve. They have daily case management services. Us as a landlord, that's beyond what we do. Likewise, we're much more experienced property managers and dealing with acquisition, have much more debt capacity, able to move things between properties, debt between properties in a way that UAY isn't going to be able to do. We've had a lot of success recently with master leases with Salvation Army and their homeless vet program. This one with UAY, we did with TVIP and Shelter House early on in the pandemic. Another one I'm missing, but at any rate, we expect that there'll be more of these coming to you going forward, and I think it's a wonderful thing for our local nonprofits to be playing to their strengths, for case managers to be doing the best case management services, property managers likewise. So part of the logic in taking that risk on the UAY project here, not knowing whether those funds would be reallocated to us, was to show that those master lease projects are very fruitful. So thank you again.
Have there been any public comments?
Not yet, but public comment will go through November 4th.
Do you expect any public comments?
I wouldn't say we get a whole lot. I think the bulk of our feedback comes from this commission.
So there wouldn't be somebody in waiting, perhaps, to throw their hat in the ring as part of a public comment, to say, we'd like the money.
I think agencies are pretty comfortable coming to staff. The agencies that we regularly work with are pretty comfortable coming to staff. They would have the opportunity to speak at the council meeting or any time between now and then as well. Sometimes we also do get favorable public comments, so if Simon wanted to come and make a public comment like that would be part of it as well.
This is just for curiosity's sake, but do the other agencies generally watch what, I guess, transactions like this, if money becomes available that was allocated but couldn't be used in the manner that it was? Are other agencies aware of this?
I don't know that if you're asking if they watch the meetings and that kind of thing, I wouldn't know that, but I think when agencies have projects that they need funding for, they typically would come to staff and talk through that a little bit. So sometimes we're in the know about that.
Okay, thank you.
I move approval of the amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. Passes.
Were you a nay?
I was a nay, yes. I should have been the only nay.
I got it.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
All right, next. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Simon.
Next is next month. Overview of next steps for fiscal year 26 legacy aid to agencies. The joint application was due October 15th. All of them should be in. There's a giant binder for some of you who wanted paper. And of course, the summation stuff is here as well. I will let staff attack it.
Okay, I'll try not to make this overwhelming. I'll try to give you the cliff notes here. So as Kyle said, we have all of the submissions. Those are available online. I printed hard copies for those of you that wanted it. The thing to remember about the hard copies is that is only the application. So keep in mind that there's supporting materials posted online. So if you'd like me to print any of those, I'm happy to do that. United Way did 3 training sessions. I think that was productive. I think that will be helpful in future joint applications as well. There was some good feedback on that. The big piece that you'll have to start thinking about is staff will be reading through these and we will get you summary sheets of each application by November 7th. So you'll want to be starting to read the applications. When we send you the staff sheets, you'll want to be reading those. The overarching message to take away today is that when you individually score your grant proposals, you have until January 6th to do that. So that sounds like a lot of time, but time tends to fly. So that's something to keep in mind. We're also going to be offering a one-on-one session if you're reading things, you're looking at the scoring sheet, you're confused, we will meet with you individually. You can call me, email me anytime with questions, but we're also going to offer some time on November 14th if you want to sit down with staff, schedule a meeting with us. We can help you work through any questions you might have. We will also be doing, some of you might be familiar with our Q&A session. If you're reading through the applications and you have questions, like clarifying questions for the applicant, you can submit those to staff and we will submit those to the agency and get you some answers for those. If you have questions for the agencies, that's going to be due to staff by November 21st. That's optional. If you don't have questions, that's fine, but just keeping that in mind so we can give them enough time to respond. What else do I have? The big HCDC meeting, once you submit your scores to us, January 6th, we'll tally all those. We'll get you some averages. We'll include that information in the packet for the January meeting. And then in January 20th will be when HCDC meets to make group funding recommendations to City Council.
I question, January
sure.
20th is also Martin Luther King Day. Are we actually going to still meet?
The 20th or the 28th?
20th.
20th? I'll have to peek at that and see. If that's conflicts with our Monday, it'll be a meeting in January. But
Okay.
if that is MLK Day, the city will be closed, so we'll have to shift it. But January is the takeaway of when we'll do funding recommendations. It might be the week after.
Okay.
Does anyone have conflicts? What's the next Monday?
Looking at the calendar right now, the next one is January 21st. I don't have any conflicts on that day.
Oh, are you talking about the next Monday?
It would be January 27th, it looks like. We can always revisit it too. We have plenty of time. Okay.
If we want to stick with Monday. So these funds, just for everybody's reminding, these funds generally go for operating, for the applicants, right? Okay.
Yep.
Operating costs, okay.
Right.
Thanks.
And this is the funding source that part of this is CDBG and then part of it is local funding. I would say this is one of the harder grant cycles that HCDC has to work through. There's a lot of good nonprofits in Iowa City, and I think once you're reading the applications, it's just a tough decision. So we're happy to help you with anything that you might need through this process. Any questions about the potential timing so far?
Did I miss something somewhere about how much money is available for agencies?
That'll be included, I think it's on the website. Off the top of my head, I think it's about $754,000.
Okay.
And when we do the group funding recommendations, we'll have all that split out. Typically, there's about 5% of the total budget that's set aside for emerging aid to agencies, now called non-legacy agencies.
Is there minimums in this one?
This one, the minimum is $15,000.
Okay.
Are there any new agencies? I haven't looked at the list yet.
This one is where we limit the applicants to those that are identified in the consolidated plan. So it's pretty standard to what you saw
Yeah.
the last cycle.
Okay.
In the packet I gave you, there's also some information that, just for your reference, of like historic funding for the last 10 years, some best practices, and then the calendar is printed out in there for you as well, with the caveat that we'll have to change that January meeting date.
Any questions from commissions about this project, about this process?
I'm sorry, where's it located? History?
The funding history, I think, is almost the last page in your binder there.
This
Oh, I
giant
see.
Spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Questions from any commission members who have not done this before? Do not hesitate to ask staff. Like, if there's anything during this process where you have a question of, what does this mean? How should I fill this out? I mean, reach out. If you don't want to reach out to staff, reach out to any of us that have done it before. What Brianna said about get to it early, don't put it off to the last minute, couldn't be more true. This is very much a do as I say, not do as I do kind of situation for me. Yeah, I did good last time though. Last time I got it in early and everything. You only had to bother me once. It makes a difference if you can get it done ahead of time.
But
Yeah.
it's probably not good practice to contact the applicants for us to come.
No.
Right.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Correct. Any questions would be coming through staff.
Okay.
And we'll get you, that way we can get you the
Yeah, that's-
responses in
right.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Of
yeah.
course we could get kicked off of this commission.
You can't.
Okay.
No, you can't. Any other questions? Thanks, Steph. Next is staff and commission updates on the agenda. Does staff have anything else to add?
Those were my big updates, unless you have anything.
Anything from the commissioners?
Well, I wondered, actually, I was going to ask Denise if she saw the article. It was either in the Des Moines Register or the Gazette Sunday about there's a new homeless liaison, if you will, in Cedar Rapids, and what they're doing about trying to work with landlords to lower rents or whatever. But it was pretty interesting because some of the things that you have mentioned is actually happening in Lynn County. So it might be worth looking at.
That was in the Register?
Well, I think it was in the Gazette, Sunday.
Oh,
I thought you were
Sunday's
gonna be like, the
Gazette.
Avenue Homeless Liaison that just explains how to get on the bus, drive down to Iowa City.
No, we don't do that.
No, but as you bring this up, I started thinking about things like vacancy taxes or,
Yeah.
things like that to encourage landlords or property managers to fill vacancies instead of waiting. So, and I know there are a bunch of other communities, more so probably in California, that are toying with an idea of a vacancy tax, which I thought would be interesting here in Iowa City.
Well, gosh, a vacancy tax would have to total more than possible damage to a unit for it to interest a landlord.
Well, I think anything would provide some incentive,
Sure.
right? And at least that money could then go towards being able to cover down, deposits or things like that for higher risk tenants
Yeah.
to sort of address the concerns that landlords would have.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I'm not sure you could call it a tax, but you could call
Well-
it something else.
You cannot call it a tax. I promise you will not be able to call it a tax.
No, but
A fee?
it's that
A fee?
idea.
I would
that-
also, I think you would, logistically, nightmare-wise, I mean, I don't know how you prove, I don't know how you get any kind of real number on whether units are vacant or not. I mean, there's no current way, I mean, there's no self-reporting vacancy checklist. And then the other question is, if you are the Hive or if you are the Lodge and you have one of these 4 or 5 bedroom suites that only 2 of the rooms are rented, do we count that as occupied? Because they count them as occupied when they give their numbers as to what their occupancy is, but
Well, it might be.
that's only two
Okay,
fifths
just a reminder,
occupied.
this is update time. This isn't
Oh,
new
yeah,
topic
this is
time.
not
so
planning
this
for the
is
future time.
no
That's a good
discussion.
point.
It would have to be, yeah,
It isn't, yeah, but
completely vetted. Anyway,
Well, it was an
but good
update
news
on that.
information from Cedar Rapids, yeah.
yes.
So
Yes.
anything else from anybody else?
So I guess I would say maybe it's time to have another conversation about strategies to address vacancy rates and the housing shortages and needs.
As a part of the landlord incentive discussion, or
Yeah.
tell me, okay.
Yeah, because we haven't resolved anything, right, from that previous meeting, and we haven't moved anything forward, so.
Our take as staff was that the commission would tell us when you wanted to put that back on the agenda.
Yeah, I would like to put that back on the agenda. I know that it was on the agenda, and then you were not able to make that meeting, so we were going to wait until the
We
next one.
redid it. We came
redid
back and redid it at the next meeting.
Yeah, you
did?
were here.
Yeah, there's one you
Well,
missed.
I was kind of,
Okay, well,
I
there
was
you have
kind of
it.
waiting on the information that Kyle was supposed to share with us, so.
It is
I
all on
wasn't going
me.
to bring it up
Yep.
until I received that.
And I honestly knew that we were getting ready to start legacy
we don't have time,
agencies
yeah.
discussion, so
Yeah,
I
we
knew
don't
it
have
wasn't
time
going to be any time before the end of the year.
That's the other consideration
yeah.
that I would say. If
Yeah.
you want it on the calendar, we're happy to do that, but you will be busy the next several
Oh, yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it might be nice to have it on the calendar and have it on the back burner while we're looking at these proposals as well, to start thinking about their strategies for dealing with the housing, perhaps.
I think we would be looking for direction on like what month do you want to see this on the schedule, just so we're clear.
I'd also want to see like what new information are we going over if we're going to put this back on the agenda.
Well, we have the information Kyle promised, right? So I would say something like.
We don't
March.
have it.
We don't have it. We will have it. You will have it. But
There's nothing like a
I mean, are we
deadline
talking
to say-
February?
Wait,
No, March, I was thinking.
no, I was thinking March or April,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, this is too important right now.
And not to be the bearer of bad news, but once legacy ends, we have to start CDBG
Oh, yeah.
again.
No, I
So
know. Yep.
it'll be January for this funding discussion, and then the next funding discussion will be in March. But April,
April.
wide open.
April sounds like a good month.
All right.
Does that give you time, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, we can, and obviously we can flesh out more what that actual agenda item needs to be. I mean, once again, that's a good conversation to have when we can have, Rachel here, Stan here, maybe some other, people on the front
Well,
lines of.
this
yeah,
is
so-
an update then?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we'll figure it out later. Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Yes,
Maybe
so,
each.
so for that meeting, I would love to have somebody from the licensing, I don't know, who is it that regulates rental licenses?
That's the stand that I just mentioned.
So to be able to address things like how would we be able to tell whether or not a unit is rented? You know, those sorts of things, to know what our resources are. So to involve that agency would be good.
I will add this on my list, and when we kind of wind down with these things, I'll revisit this and make sure I understand the framework of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I really like the direction this is going. I think it's important for us to do something like this, and maybe each of us try and bring forth some ideas. And
Yeah, because I would look at California to see what they're doing as far as that vacancy, whatever they're calling it, because it should be going into effect, and then getting some information and some ideas to then be able to have a deeper conversation.
We may also want to look at some of the limitations on local control that were imposed by the state government, because I know that some of those could impact things that we could try, possibly.
Right.
Sounds like we need an attorney.
Any other updates? All right, I would love a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. All righty.
Good
Thank you,
meeting
staff.
tonight.
Yay, thank you.